Sometimes the only thing that kept me with that one step forward was one thing. Let's not quit yet, guys. Let's think about your options. Where are you going to end up if you quit this shit? Where are you going to go?
Trade 2 days ago on the very first video I dropped on why we are entering sales on EURUSD. And as you can see, guys, the market respected our setup. So let's go back to basics, guys. We had a clear uptrend from this low right here. We had a clear uptrend. The market created higher highs, higher lows. We saw a breakout. We saw a retest. We saw a new high being formed over there. Then the market gave us some sort of double top or triple top. Then it started changing direction. We saw a break of the trend, of the uptrend. We saw a retest, and we saw a downtrend forming. And as you can see, sales were respected over here. That was the entry right there on the lower high. Because remember, this is the lower high right here. This is the lower high right here. And the markets gave us a new lower low. Right there. And this right here was a higher high. And this right here was a higher low. This was a higher high. This was a higher high because it's higher than this low right here. And then this was a higher low right there. And this was a higher low. So guys, it's as simple as that, as you can see over here. And if you actually analyze this, this was a resistance zone over here. Since it failed to break towards the upside, it respected this resistance zone over here. It melted, it came back, it respected that zone again, but it failed to be bearish from here. So we saw a breakout and a retest. And remember, guys, immediately when the market starts trending towards the upside and you see a break of the resistance, that resistance comes back to be a support. And that is where you execute your buys from that higher low right there. Especially when you're identifying the uptrend, that is a clean buying opportunity. And remember, if you miss that buy, the market will come back again to retest this higher high right here. As you can see, we saw a retest of this high and the market broke. It came back to retest, broke above, gave us another retest over here, and that was another signal for a buy opportunity on that higher low right there. And you can target the next resistance zone. As you can see, this is the take profit area right here. So that is how you identify your take profit zones after executing a trade. You look at where the market was bouncing off on the previous downtrend. Since this was a downtrend over here, as you can see, this was a clear downtrend. So you can see this was a clear downtrend. The market was giving us lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, and then a lower low right there. So this very same lower highs are the very same zones you use as your entries and as your take profits. So if you're entering on this lower high right here, because the market is retesting that zone, this zone over here, if the market is retesting that zone over there and this is a lower high, that's your entry. The very next lower high is going to be your take profit, because you are entering buys over here. You're entering buys on this lower high. So your next lower high is your take profit. The very next lower high is also your take profit. I hope that makes sense, guys. I hope that makes sense. As you can see, that is why it's important to mark these zones. That's why it's important to mark these zones, because these zones are areas that you use as your take profits and as your stop loss. It's the very same areas you use to execute trades, because that means there's a high probability that zone will respect your take profits and it will respect your stop loss, and there's a very high possibility that the market will turn on that zone because it has been respected before. So this very same lower high over here is your first take profit. The very next zone that you see on the market is your second take profit. That is where you move your stop loss to entry, or you lock profits, or whatever you decide to do. But it's very important to make sure that after you hit your first take profit on the lower high, on the next lower high, you move your stop loss to the entry. You move your stop loss to entry, and then you run a risk-free trade. That is how you manage your trades, because you don't know when the market is going to turn, and you don't know when the market is going to stop buying. But once you hit your take profit, you close your trades, you withdraw. You wait for the next trade. If you are planning to grow your account, you can just make sure you stay consistent. Maximize those wins, lock profits, maximize the wins, lock profits, withdraw. Make money, withdraw. You make money, you withdraw. So as you can see over here, since this was a higher high, the market came back to retest, it broke above, and it came back to give us another retest over here. That was a clear entry on the higher low. So since this is a lower high on this side, and it gives you a higher low now, and it's retesting, that is a clean buying opportunity over there. You target the next zones. That's your take profits over there. You can just target this zone since it's a lower high over here. And here's another lower high. Here's another lower high over here. That could be your next take profit. As you can see, that is a clean trade right there. That is a clean trade right there. All right. Another thing to consider, guys, as long as the market is still uptrending, as you can see, it's creating higher highs, higher lows, creating new higher highs, creating new higher lows. It's creating new higher highs. If the market is on a higher low right here, if the market is still above the recent lows, let me draw the lows for you. Here's a low right here. Here is another higher low. Here is another higher low. Here is another higher low. All right, let me do this so you can see clearly. Okay, let me just do this. I want you guys to see what I'm talking about. Clone. As long as the market is still above the lows, as long as the market is still above the higher lows, it is bullish, it's on an uptrend, it's still good to buy. You can only sell once the market breaks below that higher low and then it starts changing direction. That's the only time you can enter sales here. If the market does this, starts breaking the support, and it gives you, start breaking the support levels, and it comes back to be a resistance, that is when you can start looking for selling opportunities. So the sells are not valid as long as the market is on an uptrend and as long as the market is buying. The sells are not valid. I hope that makes sense. Here's another higher low over here. As long as the market is above this higher low, it's still bullish. Here's another higher low over here. As long as it's still above this higher low, which it came back to retest here, it's still bullish, guys. It's still good to buy. Once it breaks, you want to see the market break below the higher low, and then you can start looking for sales. Or you want to see it break below this higher low, then you start looking for sales. I hope that makes sense. Over here, as you can see, if the market breaks above this zone, this is now a higher low. This is now a lower high. If the market breaks above this lower high, you want to see the market break above it, retest, and then you can start looking for buys. And the buys will only be valid once the market breaks out of the trend, because it's still on a downtrend. There's a possibility for the market to do this. There's also a possibility for the market to do this. So that means you can scalp buys, and then there's a possibility for it to continue with the sells. Why? Because it's still on a downtrend. So over here you have two possibilities. You have the possibility of sells, and you also have the possibility of buys kicking in from the current price. Then you can target the highs over there. So as you guys can see, it wouldn't be a smart idea for you to start selling on this low right here, because there's a possibility that the market could buy to test that downtrending trend line right there. If it comes to test this downtrending trend line, you could see the market change direction and start falling towards the downside. But also, you could see the market break out and give you a retest for buying opportunities. You also have your zones here to monitor the trades. You have your zones here. These zones are the zones that will help you monitor your trades and make you make the smart decision. So all the time that you're looking for accurate entries, you are waiting for accurate entries all the time. So that is it for EURUSD. Let us analyze one more trade we were looking at this week, which is I think it's NZD-USD. That's the other trade we were looking at this week. Let's quickly check how it's going on that side. Alright. So guys, over here on this lower high right here, you could also see the market coming back to retest this lower high and then continue with sells. So there are like three possibilities here. You could see this movement. You could see this movement right here. Or you could see this movement right here. Now, if you're on a downtrend, there's a high possibility that the market will come retest the lower highs or the zones. It will come retest this zone right here and then start falling, or it will come retest this zone right here and then it continues with sells. There is a less possibility of the market breaking out, retesting and buying. There is slightly a less possibility of that happening because the market is on a downtrend. But the market will confirm to us whether it's buying or selling. We just wait for it to come to us. We don't rush anything, guys. We wait for it to come to us. Let us analyze. Let us also talk about NZD-USD, which was the other pair that we analyzed this week. And guys, NZD-USD paid as anticipated. As you can see over here, I'm going to start on the bigger time frame for NZD-USD, and we're going to break down how we actually caught this trade right here. If you start on let us just go onto the daily time frame, because we started on the daily time frame when we were analyzing this trade. So as you can see, guys, the market was on a downtrend. It was creating lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. Created a lower high over here, and then we have a lower low right there. So immediately we can identify that this is a downtrend over here. Why? Simply because the market is trending towards the downside. Alright, so you immediately know that if the market is trending towards the downside, you are anticipating sales. Now let's analyze the support and resistance quickly. We have a strong zone over here. We have a strong zone over here. We have a strong zone over here. Now guys, how do you identify a strong zone? You identify a strong zone by noticing how many times the market turned on that zone. So over here, the market turned right there, and it turned over here. It also turned over here. Alright, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is multiple confirmations that that zone is a strong zone, just by telling how many times it touched that zone and how many times it turned on that zone. Bear in mind, this is the daily time frame. So let me continue marking out the zones for you so you can see how many zones we have over here. So this right here is also a strong zone. As you can see, guys, the power of zones. This is the power of identifying zones. So if you go over here also, seems like we have a strong zone over here. So this was a resistance over here, and the market failed to break above the resistance. Instead, it rejected from that resistance. It became bearish. So we saw selling momentum, and we are on a downtrend. So it makes sense for the market to respect those strong resistance, and you could see the market falling from those zones. As you can see over here, guys, we also have a zone that was respected multiple times. We saw 1 turn. This is the second turn right here. This is the third turn right here that was respected. This is the fourth turn. This is the 5th turn right here. And then we had a 6th turn right there. So we have 6 turns on that zone. That immediately you can say that is a strong zone. Considering the fact that the market is on a downtrend, that was a clear selling opportunity right there. That was a clear selling opportunity on that zone. And as you can see, the market dropped as anticipated. Bear in mind, this was the daily time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, if you go into the 4-hour time frame, you will see that entry was accurate. It was a clean entry right there. That was a clean entry right there. To the 1-hour time frame. You can see that lower high entry, it was too clean. So same thing applies, guys, on the next zone. Same thing applies on the next zone. This zone right here. This zone right here, we had a turn over here, which means that was a strong zone. We had a turn over here, and we had a turn over here, and then just by having 3 turns, you can already identify that is a strong zone. And then when the market got to that zone, it respected that zone, and then you saw selling momentum from that lower high right there. And as you can see, the market fell and it paid. Alright. So I had to go through this so you can understand how to identify the zones properly and not make the mistakes that a lot of people make. On the current zone that we executed sells on for NZUSD, you can see that the market turned multiple times here. There's the first turn, there is the second turn, there is the third turn right there, there is the fourth turn. So you can see that the market was respecting this zone multiple times. This is the zone we are looking at. The market respected this zone multiple times. Hence, we looked for sells on that low right there. As much as the market was on a low, we had to look for sells. Why did we look for sells? Because the market has been respecting this zone. This was a support level over here. It failed to break below. The market bought, it broke below. The support became a resistance. Remember, if the market was supporting that zone and then it breaks below it, it comes back to retest, the support becomes a resistance. You start looking for selling opportunities. That is why we look for selling opportunities on that zone right there. And then you go into the smaller time frames on that zone. You can then identify your trend. We had a small uptrend over here. The market was creating higher highs and higher lows over here, as you can see. We had higher high, we had higher low, we had higher high, we had higher low, we had higher high, we had higher low, and then we saw a change of structure, we saw a change of trend, we saw a breakout, we saw a retest, and then we anticipated sells right after the breakouts. And when we saw the market retesting that zone multiple times, that was a clear indication that the market is now changing direction, and we're anticipating sells from that zone right there. Now guys, that is more of an advanced entry right there. But if you have the concept of how to identify a trend and how to identify breakouts and retest, you're already 10 steps ahead of someone who doesn't even know how to analyze or what they are doing and why they are buying or selling. Once you have the concept of how to identify a trend and how to identify where the market should go, that is the baseline, that is the first step, that is the foundation of forex trading. You can predict where the market is going to go. Now it's a matter of making sure you have those advanced entries so that you don't miss an entry, and you make sure you avoid drawdown as much as possible. Because we're going to dive deeper into the advanced entries in a few weeks. For now, I just want to make sure everyone is on the right track and everyone understands why they are buying and why they are selling. That's the main concept of these videos that I'm making, guys, to make sure you understand that you know why you are buying and why you are selling. So as you can see over here, the entry was too clean. Those are advanced entries, and yeah, the market paid, money was made. I hope you guys understand how we got to these entries and how we managed to take these entries right here. But it is as simple as it is, guys. There is nothing to complicate over here. Identify your trend, identify your zones, execute. That's it. I hope you guys like the video. I hope you share the video, and I hope you subscribe. I'm out, guys.